The iconic Marilyn Monroe was born Norma Jeane Mortenson on June 1, 1926, in Los Angeles, California. She was an American actress, model, and singer. Marilyn Monroe appeared in 29 films between 1946 and 1961. Out of the 15 various awards she was nominated for, she won 10 of them, including one Golden Globe Award. However, believe it or not, despite being one of the most iconic actresses of all time, Marilyn Monroe never received an Oscar nomination. Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, 1953, How to Marry a Millionaire, 1953, and Some Like It Hot, 1959, have become classics, but Miss Monroe never stood out enough for the Academy. Famous for playing comedic, blonde bombshell characters, she became one of the most popular sex symbols of the 1950s and early 1960s. Long after her untimely demise, she continues to be a major icon of pop culture. She was born and raised in Los Angeles. She spent most of her childhood in foster homes and an orphanage. Marilyn married 3 times. First to James Doherty in 1942. She was 16 years old. They divorced in 1946. Next, she married baseball star Joe DiMaggio in 1954. They divorced next year in 1955. A year later, in 1956, Marilyn married Arthur Miller. She had converted to Judaism, the religion of her husband. They were divorced in 1961. At the time of her first marriage, she was working in a factory during World War II when she met a photographer from the First Motion Picture Unit. Soon Marilyn began a successful pin-up modeling career, which led to short-lived film contracts with 20th Century Fox and Columbia Pictures. In late 1950, after a series of minor film roles, she signed a contract with Fox. Over the next 2 years, she became a popular actress, with roles in several comedies, including As Young as You Feel, and Monkey Business, and in the dramas Clash by Night and Don't Bother to Knock. She faced a scandal when it was revealed that she had posed for nude photos before she became a star, but the story did not damage her career, and instead resulted in increased interest in her films. Those photos were taken in 1949, and ended up on various memorabilia items, as well as in the first issue of Playboy magazine. Marilyn Monroe was paid $50 for the photos. She said that she needed the money for her car payment, and that she never received even a thank you from anyone, who made millions off of her nude photos. Her major breakthrough came in 1953, when she starred in 3 pictures, the film noir Niagara, and the comedies Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, and How to Marry a Millionaire. In the Gentlemen Prefer Blondes movie, she played opposite another movie icon, Jane Russell. Marilyn's leading roles in all 3 films made her one of the most marketable Hollywood stars. However, these films established her star image as a dumb blonde, which she never liked. It was also in 1953 that her nude images were used as the centerfold, and on the cover of the first issue of Playboy. On January 14, 1954, she and Joe DiMaggio were married at the San Francisco City Hall. They then traveled to Japan, combining a honeymoon with his business trip. From Tokyo, she traveled alone to Korea, where she participated in a USO show. Miss Monroe had become one of 20th Century Fox's biggest stars, but her contract had not changed since 1950, meaning that she was paid far less than other stars of her stature, and could not choose her projects. Needless to say, she was disappointed being underpaid by the studio. She was briefly suspended in early 1954 for refusing a film project. When the studio was still reluctant to change Monroe's contract, she founded her own film production company in 1954, called Marilyn Monroe Production. She returned to star in the Billy Wilder-directed comedy, The 7-Year Itch, in 1955. The 7-Year Itch was one of the biggest box office successes of her career. In the film, she becomes the object of her married neighbor's sexual fantasies. In it, Monroe stands on a subway grate, with the air blowing up the skirt of her white dress. That scene became the most famous scene of her career. To generate advance publicity for the film, that scene was staged and filmed on Lexington Avenue in Manhattan. The shoot lasted for several hours, and attracted nearly 2,000 spectators. However, unfortunately, it also marked the end of her marriage to Mr. DiMaggio, who was infuriated by the scene. Joe DiMaggio was devastated by the divorce. Years later, he told Marilyn that, if he had been her, he would have divorced him too. Also in 1955, Miss Monroe began studying method acting under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio. Later that year, Fox awarded her a new contract, which gave her more control and a larger salary. Her subsequent roles included a critically acclaimed performance in Bus Stop, in 1956, and her first independent production in The Prince and the Showgirl in 1957. She won a Golden Globe for Best Actress for her work in Some Like It Hot in 1959, which was a critical and commercial success. Her last completed film was the drama called The Misfits in 1961. The Misfits was written by her then-husband, Arthur Miller. However, the marriage between them was falling apart. For years, Miss Monroe was dealing with addiction problems. Without her consent, Marilyn was committed to the Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic in Manhattan. It is unclear if Mr. Miller had a hand in committing her. However, one thing is clear, is he did nothing to get her out. She was not allowed to make or receive phone calls. On February 10, 1961, Joe DiMaggio was able to secure her release from the clinic. Actually, that is putting it mildly. He threatened to tear the place down, brick by brick. Afterwards, Miss Monroe moved back to Los Angeles, California, to get away from Mr. Miller. Although, on May 19, 1962, she did go back to New York, in order to sing, "Happy Birthday, Mr. President," on stage at President John F. Kennedy's early birthday celebration, at Madison Square Garden. Monroe's troubled private life received much attention. She struggled with addiction and mood disorders. Her marriages to retired baseball star Joe DiMaggio and to playwright Arthur Miller were highly publicized, and both ended in divorce. On August 4, 1962, she died at age 36 from an overdose of barbiturates at her home in Los Angeles. Her death was ruled a probable suicide. Devastated by her passing, Joe DiMaggio claimed Miss Monroe's body, and arranged for her funeral at Westwood Village Memorial Park Cemetery. He had a half-dozen red roses delivered 3 times a week, to her crypt for the next 20 years. Joe never married again. Supposedly, Joe's last words were, "I'll finally get to see Marilyn." Arthur Miller did not attend Marilyn's funeral. However, he, and later his estate, have made, and continue to make, millions off of merchandising licenses of her photos and images. The one thing rarely mentioned about Marilyn, is that she adored children. Throughout her career, she had always been active in children's charities. 11 years after her untimely demise, Elton John released his song, "Candle in the Wind," in honor of, and as a tribute to Marilyn Monroe. To slightly paraphrase what Elton John sang, "Goodbye Norma Jeane, though I never knew you at all, you had the grace to hold yourself, while those around you crawled. And it seems to me, you lived your life, like a candle in the wind. Your candle burned out long before, your legend ever did. Goodbye Norma Jeane, from a person, who sees you, more than just our Marilyn Monroe." Thank you for watching. Hope you found this video informative, and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. We do like to know, and hear your feedback. We also have merchandise, available for purchase, on our Teespring store. Link to our store, is in the description section below. And, if you have the means, please consider supporting us on Patreon, where we post bonus material. Till next time, this is the Peeping Loony, saying cheers, and have a good day.